Okay. So, welcome everyone. I think we're ready to start fairly promptly. Welcome to the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. And we do not have anyone signed up for public comment, so we will begin with the Wit and Wisdom implementation update. And did you sign up? You want to sign up? Is it too late? No. Sure. Okay. Motion to me at the end of the meeting when it's time for public comment. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Janice Lane, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning.
Good afternoon. Ashley Cook Plymouth, Director of Literacy, Language, and Culture.
And good afternoon. I'm Nancy Fagan, Principal of Hollandtown Elementary Middle School, number 215.
Welcome all. Thank you.
We are excited to provide an update for you today around Wit and Wisdom. As you know, this is year one implementation. So we are going to update you on the professional development that's been happening, trends from the field, things that we've heard. We invited Principal Fagan to share some information from a school-based view. We also have a teacher who is invited to join us. So hopefully she'll be able to make it too. She may join the table a few minutes later.
Okay, great.
Oh, she's here.
Oh, she's here.
There we go. That's perfect timing. I didn't see you sneak in behind us.
Just
take my seat.
All right, so like Janice framed, for our implementation update, I will frame a couple of slides just where we've been in terms of professional learning, the supports that we have provided for both school leaders and teachers and district staff around implementation. And then I've asked both Ms. Brooks and Ms. Fagan to come and share their experience from the lens of a teacher and a principal in implementation so far, since we're almost 7 months in. So just to reorient all of us, a couple of the reasons why we landed on Wit and Wisdom from the feedback that we received from our community, as well as the review committee, really were around these 4 bullets that you'll see on this slide. So Wit and Wisdom as a K-8 curriculum has really afforded us the opportunity to ensure that all of our students have a chance to engage with complex text and tasks on a daily basis in their English language arts classroom. Wit and Wisdom is a knowledge building curriculum, so instead of assuming that students come with prior background knowledge around certain content, Wit and Wisdom really elevates and evens the playing field so that students are enriched with the content as it's built throughout the text that they experience, as well as the artwork that they experience. So I put up there that expanding the visual and content literacy was also another feature of the curriculum that has really been an equitable approach for all of our students. So regardless of if I'm an English language learner, or if I'm a student with a disability, or I'm a student who might just be below grade level, the design of the curriculum and really anchoring in visual art as the first complex text that our students engage in a module has really opened the doors for all students to find themselves within the content and the learning. And then lastly, going the K-8 route, that it really has some very succinct and comprehensive instructional routines that start in kindergarten and go all the way to up 8th grade. And Ms. Brooks is a first grade teacher, so we'll get to hear from that early childhood perspective that I know in some previous committee meetings we've had some folks who've shared some concerns around that early childhood piece. I'll speak later about how we're supporting that, but I also thought it was really important to hear from an early elementary teacher as well. So with adopting any new high-quality curriculum, we knew that we would have to set out some implementation goals to set some expectations for year one. So the 2 goals that you'll see here are implementation goals that we created in partnership with the folks at Wit and Wisdom to help ensure that we had successful implementation. With any high-quality material, especially Wit and Wisdom, it takes about 3 years to see the impact in terms of student achievement and assessments, but really 3 years to have successful implementation. And so where we decided to focus in all of our learning at the district leadership level, at the school leadership level, and at the teacher level is around these two goals. So the goals that we set out this year were to ensure that all stakeholders in our district, teachers and leaders included, have an opportunity to really internalize the curriculum components and really take this year to grapple with the design of the curriculum, understand how it is designed, so that before we start to see some real impact further down the line on student achievement, that we can ensure that all of our leaders from the top to the teachers and the students really understand how the curriculum is designed and what it entails. The second goal that we set out this year for implementation is to ensure that our teachers had the resources and the support and the time to prepare purposefully and strategically using their curriculum resources. So we have outlined and designed these goals to be met through a couple of different avenues. One of the ways that we are ensuring that we are meeting those goals and reaching those two goals is through our professional learning opportunities and strands. So you have seen this slide in some form in previous updates, like our blueprint update. So I'll kind of go through this a little bit quickly again so we can hear from the folks who are implementing on an everyday basis. But just to outline for you that we do have three approaches to professional learning this year to support our teachers and our leaders in meeting those two goals. So all of our school leaders that have K-8 this year, they had a session half day prior to our systemic PD for teachers. So they have a half day 3 times a year session where they are previewing the upcoming professional learning prior to the teachers receiving it. And the next slide, I'll go into a little bit more detail on what the content and the topics of those sessions were. Another part of our professional learning strand this year was to pull out our blueprint targeted grades. So our teachers in grades 3 to 5 and 6 came out on our systemic days and had a more narrow focused professional learning facilitated from the folks at Wit and Wisdom. That really helps build some collegiality amongst the grade levels as they really explore a little bit deeper around Wit and Wisdom for their particular grade level. And then to support all of our teachers through our virtual navigating academic planning inputs this year, we have a monthly large input where we are helping teachers and school leaders unpack the module, unpack arcs of learning. Again, so we're really meeting that second goal around ensuring that teachers are preparing purposefully and strategically. Sure.
Again, could you give me your title again?
Sure, yeah. I'm the Director of Literacy, Language, and Culture.
Okay.
So English Language Arts, Social Studies, World and Classical Language, and Fine Arts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just to take you on a little bit of a journey of where we have been in terms of professional learning for both our school leaders and our teachers. And when I use the term school leaders, that includes district leadership as well. So my team, my specialists, our academic content liaisons, our instructional leadership executive directors, our ILEDs, all of us have really embraced this learning and taken a part in the professional learning strategy this year. So we've had 3 big areas where we have addressed the leadership and getting their learning deepened around Wit and Wisdom. So once we had board approval of Wit and Wisdom, we launched our CAOs and Chief of Schools Institute with a half-day session that was facilitated by the folks from Wit and Wisdom, and that session was titled Creating a Culture for Wit and Wisdom. And the intent of that professional learning was really around creating the shared understanding of why we selected Wit and Wisdom, and then what that having a knowledge-building curriculum that is standards aligned and demands that all students engage in grade-level complex texts and tasks means from the school leader perspective. From the CAO, Chief of Schools Institute, then we launched a series of summer institutes that were designed for teachers, but school leaders and district leadership were also invited. And those in-person offerings were titled Launch Wit and Wisdom. And that is the foundational session that just really kind of goes over the structures and the components of the curriculum, really starting to hit our first goal around the internalization. Then in our first systemic professional development was our October literacy leadership session, and those were 3 days, 3 half days, where principals at different CLNs came in for a half-day session. And the first Wit and Wisdom PD session that we implemented after launch was a session titled Lesson Preparation and Customization. And that session was really designed to help teachers and school leaders have a shared understanding of what it means to implement wit and wisdom with integrity. We spent a lot of time defining integrity and the unintended consequences that occur when you implement any program with complete fidelity, as well as what happens when you implement any program with complete improv. And so where we want to meet is that sweet spot in the middle, integrity, where teachers are still leveraging the curriculum resources and are engaging students, and they're not compromising the rigor and the level of the standards and the complexity of the text and the task, but they're using knowledge that they have of their children and their content to make judicious decisions. So we spent a lot of time going back and forth with our partners at Wit and Wisdom around what is the next session that made sense right after launch. And what we were hearing from a lot of folks in the field by the time we got to October was that pacing became an issue. That I would say is still a trend that we're hearing. Again, it also was expected, so that wasn't something that we didn't anticipate in adopting a rigorous comprehensive curricula. So in partnership, we decided that the next move should be the lesson prep and customization, because that we know teachers are making instructional decisions, whether principals or Wit and Wisdom was in the room or not. And so we wanted to ensure that they had a framework for making just decisions that weren't going to compromise the rigor and the intent of the curriculum. So in October, we implemented that PD with our blueprint targeted grades. And what you'll see a little bit later is that we have been collecting feedback along the way. And one learning that we had from that session is that our teachers that were not in 3 to 5 or 6, they wanted that PD as well. So taking that feedback, we offered that lesson preparation and customization PD this past January on the 25th. And moving forward, knowing that the curriculum is new for everyone, anytime we have Wit and Wisdom folks to deliver PD, our next day is the 15th of March. We are opening up sessions to grades outside of our blueprint target as well, so we can meet the needs of all of our teachers. This slide, just shows the mirror and the parallel that every session that we gave school leaders, teachers received as well. From a lot of the research that we have around implementing high-quality materials, building teacher and leader knowledge and building professional learning communities that are grounded in a PD strand around the actual curriculum, we know is valuable and what's going to help support implementation. So we were very strategic and very intentional to ensure that whatever we engage our teachers in, we also engage our leaders in as well. One note to the PD, because we did offer those summer sessions, and we have about 18 to 2,000 teachers, K-8, that teach English language arts. And as of our summer PD for that launch session, that first session, we were able to engage around 700 teachers prior to school starting. So, as you know, we are looking to do the same process for 9-12 now to start for next school year. So we're taking a lot of that learning and ensuring that we are beefing up as many summer opportunities for our 9-12 folks, as well as our onboarding of any new teachers who will need Wit and Wisdom next year, because we found that really capturing their attention and getting them the opportunity to get into the materials before students came, or before the 29th, that one day right before we came back to school, really gave them some time to unpack, internalize, and really kind of ground their bearings around what they were going to be implementing. So a part of our journey and implementation so far too, we know that it is very important for us to be receiving feedback from our various stakeholders around their experience with the curriculum so that we can best support and meet their needs. So for Module 1, we had a couple of different implementation opportunities. We collect feedback monthly using our academic planning virtual input. We also had a series of teacher and community feedback sessions held towards the end of November. We offered some in-person sessions as well as some webinar sessions. In addition to a feedback survey link that was ongoing for folks who couldn't come out to our in-person session. And we were really excited because we don't typically get high response rates in survey links. in the district. But we were really excited that from that survey link, we had 188 teachers who responded, and their feedback was invaluable. Like I had mentioned, we heard that folks wanted the lesson prep and customization if they were in kindergarten, first, seventh, or eighth. And so those were changes that we were able to make just by hearing from teachers and principals.
Is that
Yes.
is that the academic virtual, is that what you were talking about?
So both. So our academic virtual input that happens monthly, we have an ongoing survey there. That survey is really around the content of those sessions, of those PD resources. This survey was a specific survey link that was sent out to all teachers across the district K-8 that asked targeted questions around their implementation for quarter one.
So when do those virtual reflections happen? When does that happen? You said every month?
So the input occurs every month, and the feedback opportunity is really weekly, because depending on how a school team or a teacher interacts with the virtual PD, they have that opportunity. The link doesn't close. That link doesn't close. So they have that. They really have weekly, if they wanted daily, access to give us feedback in that input form. We have not received as many responses with the monthly input for the virtual planning piece. A couple of different hypotheses around why. One in particular, sometimes teacher teams will engage in that monthly PD together. So I might log in, but the three of us might be engaging in the session. We also heard feedback from that, and as well as our curriculum implementation piece, that it's a lot. So having this monthly input that ends up being kind of some weekly resources to access, that teachers feel like it's almost like too much PD. So like that might also be a barrier that we are experiencing on getting feedback through that lens. But the direct feedback link survey that was emailed to teachers, we had a higher response rate there. We also had an in-person session, that was led by Dr. Santelises. So it was a CEO-teacher connection that focused on wit and wisdom. That happened in early December, and that was an opportunity for teachers to come out and share their direct feedback with Dr. Santelises. So on this slide, just kind of highlighted some of the trends that we heard either from our walks in the field or the survey, and I'll just highlight a few because I really want to ensure that Ms. Brooks and Ms. Fagan can share their feedback from their lens. But just kind of high level, some of the trends, pacing. So again, we knew kind of at the gate that pacing was going to be an issue, but that was definitely captured in some of our feedback, and we have adjusted and provided additional supports to help school leaders and to help teacher teams and coaches to think about how they are supporting teachers and leveraging some of the PD resources that we have provided to help with pacing, just so we can be more intentional and supportive around that. Some of the glows really were around the text. So this is a first grade teacher, a comment from a first grade teacher in the survey, but I feel like we hear this K-8, just that students are really in finding enjoyment in the text and are being really excited about some of the texts. One text in particular for eighth graders who some of the teachers, was at a school the other day, and the teacher did not think that his eighth graders were going to like this text titled All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a historical fiction around World War II, and he's like, his kids are loving it. So a lot of what we're hearing from the feedback from teachers and principals is that students are surprising us with their engagement and their enthusiasm around the text. In terms of some of the instructional impacts, that we're seeing a ton of writing, more writing at younger grades and earlier than we have in previous years. So that is something really to celebrate. And that folks are finding that some of the scaffolds that are already that are embedded within the curriculum are helpful not only in implementing the instruction, but helpful in supporting teachers building their content knowledge. Because this is such a knowledge-rich curriculum, there are some topics that some of our teachers may not have had years of experience around. So they are really finding some use in the embedded professional learning resources to help build their knowledge. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brooks and Ms. Fagan. Ms. Chantel Manning is a parent from Fort Worthington. She was unable to attend with us today due to her class schedule. But I just wanted to give Ms. Brooks and Principal Fagan a few minutes to share their experience and their implementation journey with Wit and Wisdom, if we can.
Hello, my name is Kenesha Brooks, and I'm a first grade teacher at Samuel Coleridge Taylor. My experience initially with Wit and Wisdom, like she said, was extremely overwhelming. It is very rigorous, and honestly, I was feeling very overwhelmed. And, you know, I say it all the time, I was lessons into my module 1 before I was like, you know what, this isn't working for me, it's not working for my kids. I had to figure out another way to attack it. So I took my time. I didn't try to plan the lesson first or read as I planned. I would read the entire lesson it's maybe like 5 lessons per book, and read all 5 lessons to see how they all kind of flowed together, and then went on to plan each lesson from there. And that opened up a whole new world for myself and my students. There are a ton of scaffolds that gives them the opportunity to create charts. In the anchor charts that I make in the classroom, if I never put any of them up on the walls, my kids have their knowledge journal that they can just open up, and they have anchor charts of their own. So when they forget about a different detail or something that they need to say, they can go right to their own anchor chart, and it's all right there. When I tell people that I teach first grade and my kids are writing informative paragraphs, they're like, huh? I mean, topic sentences, conclusions, and they know it when they see it. They are able to go back into the text, and, you know, they can remember a piece of something, and they're feeling better about asking for help. You know, we did a new read assessment, and my student was like, I want to say this. And he's like, I see it here, but the words were too close to see the capital letter and the period. And he was like, can you just underline it for me? I'm looking for the sentence that says something about squeaking and crying. And I was like, sure. But the fact that he knew what he wanted to say and that it was in the text and he needed help to, like, can you just underline that one for me to annotate the text, he's 6. So, I mean, it is rigorous, but to understand that the impact that it's going to have down the line. Like, 3rd grade teachers in 2 years are going to be buying me lunch for the school year. I'm going to have free lunch every day because I've not, you know, they're so prepared, you know, when they get there. They're learning articles, determiners for articles, common nouns, proper nouns, and they're able to use them. They can't write a detail without using an adjective or a proper verb tense. And it's in the rubric. So if they don't have it, they're losing the points off of it. So that's something that they have to do every day. They have to answer all the questions in a complete sentence. If they don't, someone else is like, that wasn't a complete sentence. You know, and then they're able to peer help, you know, to fill in some things. But it's great to just see them thinking so much.
Ms. Brooks, I think that the 3rd grade teachers will be happy also because of your backwards mapping. I think it's something very important, what you just said, looking at all of the units, I think you said, prior to teaching the lessons, I think is important. And it goes back to this first goal. I think teachers and leaders internalize the curriculum components. And I think that's key. As you all are rolling out the curriculum, making sure that teachers are doing that due diligence to kind of take in, not just from lesson to lesson, but seeing how the big picture looks prior to rolling out the lesson. So I think that is great. So I appreciate hearing that.
Thanks.
When I ask these questions, remember, I'm the higher ed. And
She's a teacher. She's going to say that she's higher ed, but she's a teacher.
I am a teacher, okay? But what I need to know, and you might have already said it, every teacher at that school will be going through this whole program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Every single one. So regardless of which class the student will go to right after the first, second, and so on, each teacher will have that experience and know exactly where the student should be, and will be a part of the whole program in the entire school. That's correct?
Yep,
Yes.
that was one of the reasons, another reason that Witten Wisdom was selected for that K-8 build. So it's an opportunity for equity. So regardless of what school you go to, whose classroom you're in within a school, you are exposed and engaged and held responsible and accountable to engaging at tasks and texts at your grade level.
The other question, and I know I've heard this way before today, all of the schools that we're in Baltimore City are at the same point. So if a child transferred to another school,
Yes.
they will be able to continue where they left off. If your student leaves halfway through the semester, I say semester, halfway through the semester, they will be able to pick up at another school and should be where they would be if they stayed with you at the school.
So
that's the
remember,
goal.
I had brought up the pacing, right? So we're getting quicker with our pacing as we're learning.
Okay.
So all schools are now in our second module.
Okay,
We
good.
have a good deal of our schools that are rounding out Module 2 and moving into Module 3. But with year 1, folks are still internalizing, folks are still working with their preparation and unpacking and planning. So we're not to the point yet where if I leave Samuel Coleridge Taylor first grade and go to a classroom in Highlandtown, that they might be on the same lesson. It might be within a few lessons, but again, as we get better and as we get further along in our implementation, yes, that's the goal, right? So.
Yeah, that's my great concern, is making sure that the student will be picking up the same learning as they move from, because we have students transitioning from one school to the other, and I would be really concerned with that. But at some point, we're following that, and we know where they should be, and the teacher, will it continue, will be able to pick up and understand where they should be.
Yes. As
Okay.
we collectively as a district get some more implementation months and years under our belt, we'll be
Right,
a lot
right.
closely aligned to within a day or two in
And
terms of a
we
lesson.
will be able to evaluate it, because you did say that it should take 3 years. Didn't you say that you
So
said
it takes
that-
3 years for successful implementation of
Right.
Wit and Wisdom or
and then we
really
can do a
any
study
high-quality
on-
curriculum.
And we can do a study at the end of that 3 years and determine how well we did, do a research study. Is that right?
So
No,
someone could do it.
We're in the beginning, but I'm just saying that would be our hope, is that after a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
we can do a study and see how well they did.
Yes.
And see where we need to pick up or add more to the work that we're doing.
Right, yes,
We need to
and
know how everything works.
Yep,
I'm
and
a researcher, so I'm just saying, this is not negative.
Yeah.
It's really positive. We can use your data and determine how well our students did
yes, that's
in those 3
accurate.
years,
That's
right?
accurate.
And so Teresa could talk about the research, but to me, after a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, to me, the implementation or the effectiveness of the implementation is going to be seen in student outcomes as well as teacher satisfaction.
Right, exactly.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Fagan.
May I just interrupt for 1 minute, since we did stop with questions? I just have one lingering question I would just want to throw out. I don't need an answer today, but it would be interesting to also look at data about dyslexia. I mean, what happens when you're a first grade teacher, or the principal can even address it, but there are students who struggle to learn how to read and need extra help. And so we haven't addressed that, so it doesn't mean you may have, but that's a question that is of interest to me. Thank you.
And I think I can jump in on that point, because initially, Hollandtown number 215, we didn't like Wit and Wisdom, to put it simply. And I think I was invited because it's not so much that I'm a convert, but I understand the value. This is a tough program. And the big assumption that I'm a teacher too, I don't care what other titles I might hold. The assumption is that every child independently can work with complex texts. And we know just from the data that is shown time and time again, we have a lot of students who read well below level. my school is also 60% ELL learners. And what that means is just being an ESOL student just doesn't mean you come with English as a second language. That could mean you haven't been to school, even in your own country. That could mean the interrupted instruction is so vast that you've missed 5, 6, 7 years of a formalized program. That could mean English is the second language. So it can mean a lot of different things, and we struggled. We struggled very hard with bringing wit and wisdom to students who read significantly below level, to students who with disabilities who also have different ways of computing information, because wit and wisdom, again, is just, it brings the curriculum in one way. Even though, yes, there's scaffolds and there's supports, as you were saying, Ms. Brooks, there's all of those things, but those things move through the text. But when they're gone, and students are left to access complex text alone and access those strategies, some of the basic building blocks of just teaching a student how to read aren't there. So that's what I'm hoping we will also, with the program, progress to. And I know my third grade teachers are going to be real happy in 2 years to receive our first graders as well. It is a tough program. The program doesn't take into account the instructional level of students. So guided reading, which we were a huge fan and proponent of, we're not able to do in Wit and Wisdom. So having that time for small group instruction to instruct kids and let them practice at their grade level competency is difficult to do. But the training that you identified with the customization, love that training, because we implemented it with fidelity. We cried every day. Everybody was crying. And Miss Fagan doesn't cry. I was crying. Everybody was upset. Everybody was crying. Kids, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. Kids were turned off. Teachers were turned off. We were trying to make it work. Once we understood that we could have integrity in the program, but have it meet the needs of our kids, was just a wonderful, wonderful door opener for us, and allowed us to start to then say, wow, this can be and will be a great program. Things that we loved were the connection to the arts. Oh my God, we show visual arts posters and pictures and have kids reflect on it and be reflective of it and just think, what do you think the author's doing? Those connections have just been wonderful. The vocabulary and getting into the different tiers of vocabulary has been wonderful. Tough, but wonderful. For our kids, again, taking time to be able to build background knowledge before we get into some of the stories is necessary for us. Our pacing is real off. You'll be happy to know our pacing on your level, Ms. Brooks, is pretty much on point. We're pretty much K through 2. We're pretty much right on point with the district. Grades 3, 4, and 5, we're behind. We're significantly behind, and we're going to do some things to try to help that. But it was necessary so our kids could still be engaged, be motivated, not be turned off, write more, engage more. So our kids they're starting to feel it now. Everybody's feeling it now. Miss Fagan's feeling it now. People get their vibe from me at my school. I can't help it. I've been there a long time. Teachers are really enjoying it, enjoy working together and figuring it out. So it's going to be a really great program. I do hope, though, that to address some of the basic building blocks of teaching a kid how to read and fast is something that we still need to probably look into as a district, and figure out how Wit and Wisdom can either have us have some type of alternative plan for those students or something that's in conjunction with the program. But when the pacing does have to be off for those kinds of reasons, it's okay. It's okay. But we're enjoying Wit and Wisdom now. We're seeing the fruits of it.
I just want to say one thing, and it reminds me of when I was teaching organic chemistry. I enjoyed it so much. And you sound like a person that's enjoying what you're doing. And when you say that we cried, I'm going to say keep on crying, because that means that you really care and you want to see a change So when you stop crying, that means that you don't care. And I can see that you guys are doing a great job over there.
Thank
So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. I still love it, and I've been in the district 33 years,
Oh, geez.
so I love it.
Okay.
I love it each and every day.
Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you, both Ms. Brooks and Principal Fagan. Again, I want to be very intentional. I think the last time we were here, Commissioner McFadden, you had asked intentionally, can we hear from some of our schools that might not have been represented in the video that we showed? And, you know, both Ms. Brooks and Principal Fagan are examples of all of our schools that are implementing Wit and Wisdom about what is possible, although the curriculum is tough and is rigorous and is not only challenging students, but it's challenging the adults too. Adults at the school level and frankly, sometimes adults at our district level too. And I think the beauty of that though is that we're in this together, that we are learning together, that we have been very fortunate to have kind of the space and time to engage in our own productive struggle, both from Dr. Santelises and Chief Conley, as we implement this because we know that it's what's right for students. So thank you both for coming. One other thing that I just wanted to share, I had mentioned this at our last Blueprint update, that it's something that Principal Fagan said, you know, that we are still learning and figuring out what are the additional supports, what are the additional professional learning supports, resources that we need to help complement the core program, Wit and Wisdom. And so one of the ways that we are doing that and going a little bit deeper from our ILS, our intensive learning site strategy from the Blueprint, is through the Wit and Wisdom Spotlight Schools program. And this program is in partnership with not only Wit and Wisdom, but Wilson Reading. Wilson Reading produces Foundations, which is our K-2 foundational skills program. So that's what supplements for our phonics phonemic awareness program. So it complements Wit and Wisdom. And so through our partnership with both of those partners, we have identified 7 schools, 5 of which are intensive learning sites for literacy, and 2 that are in CLN 5 that have been doing some intense work with Wilson Reading. And we are fast tracking those 7 schools to elevate to spotlight schools where we can come and we can bring other schools within our district to learn from a little bit more intimately than we are currently leveraging our ILS. And this is just kind of 4 of our goals of this program. And we just kicked off with our first site visits from the Wit and Wisdom coaches last week at the 7 sites. And the main focus there is around growing the leaders, instructional leadership and expertise around leading for Wit and Wisdom. So with this program, Wit and Wisdom are testing out some leadership look-for tools, which are nice for us to try out that could hopefully inform some of our larger walkthrough and look-for protocols to help support teachers and leaders around implementation. Through this program, we're hoping to rapidly improve success in those 7 schools around implementation through the deep support. So those schools will receive 3 strength-based coaching visits from a Wit and Wisdom coach, and for those 5 ILS, that's in addition to their literacy-based coach. So this is an expert from Wit and Wisdom who is coming out and leading these guided walks with the instructional leadership team and really elevating what's going well in their practice and thinking about how can we amplify that a little bit more. So really excited about that. And our ultimate goal is that we will be sharing those successes and those practices and processes to the larger district. So just really excited about this additional opportunity to learn and learn with our schools, which is meaningful. And then just to wrap up, so just some next steps for us is this continued engagement. I had already mentioned that from the feedback we received from teachers that are non-targeted grades, we started to extend the lesson prep and customization PD to those grades. We'll be doing the same in March. Just anytime we have Wit and Wisdom experts here facilitating PD, we're going to extend those sessions outside of the targeted grades to ensure that learning is equitable. We will be launching in the next few weeks or so some norming experiences for district leadership, so leadership within the CAO's office as well as the school's office and our ILEDs, so we can start to collect some evidence and some implementation practices and trends. We are going to test out a look-for protocol and walk tool that will help not only deepen our expertise and knowledge around it, but to help drive what next year's implementation support, maybe next year's goals and our continued professional learning strategy will be. So that will be starting in early March. Really excited about that. In response to a lot of the feedback that we're getting from our kindergarten teachers, we are moving quickly to establish a kindergarten work group so we can start to have some of those teachers and some of our experts in the field around early literacy, as well as our experts from Wit and Wisdom, to help us really think through a strategic approach to support kindergarten, but really that K-2, so that they have a better approach of balancing not only the foundational skills component, the Wit and Wisdom core, but also just some of those best practices that we know are necessary for our early learners in kindergarten with movement and play and exploratory learning. So really looking forward to launching that this spring. So we have a springboard for professional learning and resources beginning this summer. And then that we're just going to continue to capture feedback in the ways that we have. So we're wrapping up Module 2 for most people. And we will be doing a Module 2 feedback survey. Again, our intent is to do these feedback surveys after each module, really after each quarter, so we can just continue to capture feedback and evidence to help us learn and grow, but really to help us support our teachers and our leaders.
Thank you all for that. It's a lot. I would recommend for Principal Fagan's some of your teachers in that kindergarten work group, because you service your school services a fairly diverse population, to perhaps have them in that work group also. Just an idea, you know. What would
I was saying, Principal Fagan didn't mention that she is one of our Cohort 1 literacy ILSs. So pulling on her knowledge and her learning and her teachers is definitely something that we'll do with the kindergarten work group, but that we do pretty constantly. So.
I would also be interested in hearing more about the differentiation strategies that are happening in the classroom to kind of address some of the foundational skill deficits that we were listening to, and how they perhaps are incorporated in the bigger picture. And then you also mentioned the 9 through 12 curriculum also. And some of the feedback I remember that we received last year was some folks waiting until the summer to try out and test the curriculum. So I'm sure that we'll have to approve it, but potentially question, in a utopia of a world, is there a way to pilot any of the materials prior to students being released for the summertime, to perhaps get a different type of buy-in from the teachers prior to the summer? It's an idea, and depending on when we're getting it to approve the curriculum, it could be an option to maybe pilot some of it prior to the summer implementation sessions, PD, before going into a school year with an adopted curriculum that everyone's going to have to use.
So I can jump in for a quick synopsis piece around that from last year's process, as well as the process this year with procurement. Because of the guidelines around pieces around confidentiality in the decision-making process, as programs were asked to submit for that, we cannot publicly share that information or share that across, so we can't take that out and pilot. What we do instead is the due diligence of the team who's doing that work, partners with other districts that have either implemented, we've talked with different leadership when we did Wit and Wisdom. We had several conversations with other districts that when we got down to those two top contenders, that we checked in with folks that are already implementing lessons learned, et cetera. We are a bit in front of the timeline this time with the high school adoption, but we'll still be very close with your approval process to be able to make sure that folks have that. What we're trying to garner better from lessons learned in the K-8 adoption is how to get more engagement in meaningful ways along the process. So we were able to start the beginning of the year with the first professional development with teachers in high school, talking to them about what did they want to see in the curriculum, what were those insights, and how does that look. So that'll be the same process that we'll use, but we will take consideration into that based on the timelines with the adoption to see what we can do.
Thank you. Just for all curriculum, I think it would be nice to perhaps have the curriculum approved a little earlier, moving forward, to maybe allow some of the piloting to happen prior to the summer. It's just my thought on it.
Thank you. This is a really quick question. How do you incorporate this information and wisdom with students who are graduating from college, who go in education majors, who have done we call it the clinical or internship? Do you go into like Morgan State, Towson, and introduce the program to them so that they can hit the ground running when they start in the school year?
Ashley's laughing because we just had this conversation today.
Okay.
Part of it is, yes, we absolutely will. I think we have room to improve on that. Knowing this is year one, it was really making sure that those two goals around internalizing the curriculum and preparing were the focus for getting it into teachers' hands, supporting teachers, aligning leaders. But now it is that next stage. We did do some early on training with some of the partner organizations that work with us. I don't think we got to all of them. But that's what we're working on right now, is figuring the best way to make sure that anybody who works with our students has exposure to wit and wisdom, the structures in it, the background and design that Ashley talked about earlier, to make sure that there's alignment there.
Thank you very much. This has been very interesting and very helpful. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. And we could keep talking about it, but we do have a big agenda, we're going to move now to computer science and science curriculum review.
Good afternoon, Janice Lane, ED of Teaching and Learning still. I will be here a lot today.
Good afternoon, Stacy Davis, Coordinator for Library Media and Instructional Technology.
Good afternoon, Stan Wolf, Interim Director for Career and Technical Education.
Joshua Gabriel, Science Director. Joshua Gabriel, Science Director.
Welcome.
So just to remind you and to remind the public that this is a process that we do around 5-year review of curriculum. So as you can see on the chart in front of you, school year 18-19 is to revisit the science and technology curriculum. The idea here is that the board has an opportunity to review both the grade level scope and sequences as well as the executive summaries to review. That is available both for the board and for the public. So the team will be sharing both updates with you now.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited to share this with you because a lot has changed since you've seen technology 5 years ago. So we're in the process now of transitioning all of our courses in our course catalog from grade, whatever it might be, K through 8, technology, to grade K through 8 computer science. And we're doing that in response to a lot that's happening in our community. So we've got our Maryland Legislative House Bill 281, which is calling for computer science requirements, course requirements for our high schoolers, and we suspect at some point we'll also move down to our middle and elementary kids as well. This aligns us with the newly adopted Maryland K-12 computer science standards, and it helps us to really build a pathway for our students. We've never had a pathway between our kindergarten all the way up through our high school kids for computer science, so that's something that we're really interested in having happen. And then not on this slide, but also equally as important, is this also puts us in alignment with the computational thinking requirement from ESSA for educating the whole child. So what we have been doing in comparison to what we're proposing to do in grades K to 8, we have for the past, for as long as I can remember, I've been doing this for a long time, and for all of that time, we've had basically teacher-created curriculum in our technology labs. It wasn't necessarily standards aligned, and there were no real assessments that were consistent across schools. And so we had a lot of that inconsistency, and you'd go from school to school, and you would see a variety of things happening at grade levels. And so we just never were able to get that to be something that was consistent. So with this new proposed computer science curriculum, this is nationally recognized. We're adopting the code.org curriculum. It is aligned to both state and national standards. It's project-based assessment, so kids are doing a lot of hands-on activities, and so rather than taking a lot of paper pencil tests, they have to build and create. And then this gives us consistency across all of our schools.
Yeah, so in the high school space, there is a high school graduation requirement for students to earn a tech credit. And right now, this current school year, about 45% of students get that through the Foundations of Technology course. But similar to what Stacy mentioned, it's not really taught with any fidelity or consistency. As you go to school, it looks differently. Looks different at different schools. But about 28% of high school students are taking the Foundations of Computer Science course now. What we hope to be in the future in relation to House Bill 281 that was mentioned earlier is moving all of our high schools to the Foundations of Computer Science course. It's just a much more robust program and really just preparing students for future careers and exposing them to the world of computer science.
So this pipeline that we're trying to create from K to 12, as Dan said, really does respond to what the community is looking for in terms of our students' ability to, obtain jobs in the industries in Baltimore. We've become quite a tech mecca here, and so this prepares kids for that. And at the same time, for those kids that don't want to go into computer science, it gives them a great deal of problem-solving skills, collaboration skills, and a lot of those softer skills that they need either for college or career. And so starting with kindergarten, kids will be doing things that are both hands-on, unplugged activities that don't require a lot of screen time, and moving to more abstract things that they do online, building coding activities and building games and those kinds of things. It's very student-centered, and it makes use of our resources and our industry partners here in the area. And that follows through all the way through the high school level with our Foundations of Computer Science course. So this slide gives you an overview of the types of projects and products that kids will create through this curriculum in grades K to 5. So starting with kindergarten, our students are creating games or stories. They are collaborating, they're doing a lot of problem solving, and they are starting to talk and think about internet safety. In our first grade, they dig a little deeper and build a game that's a little bit more complex, and then they really work on collaboration in terms of programming together, and they dig a little deeper in with critical thinking. Second grade, they're actually going to build an interactive game, and so that requires some more information around binary language and some deeper thought in programming. In third grade, they're going to do some additional coding, and they're going to build a little bit more around algorithms and looping, and having some skills that really require some thinking about algorithms and iterations of programming. And then in fourth and fifth grade, they have a capstone project. So they have an opportunity to decide what project they want to build based on what they've learned in those courses. And all of these grade level activities are very authentic. They're real world because kids can solve a problem that is happening in their community. They're very much hands-on, and it's all project-based. Similar course outcomes in our middle school years. Oops, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
Let me hold it because it'll be related to all of these, I think.
Okay. So in our middle school grades, we're starting with sixth grade. We're doing what's called Fundamentals Express because we've had a lot of content that we've given them in K to 5, and so we're going to go back and review. And we're going to make sure that everybody has a strong background in all of those different computer science skills and problem-solving skills. And then they're going to move into Discoveries Units 1, 2, 3, and 4, where they'll do problem-solving, web development. They'll do animation activities where they're building games with a lot of animation, and then they're going to focus on the design process as well.
Yep. And the high school computer science course is really broken down into 6 units, and a lot of it is how students and technology interact with the community and how it can help solve solve community problems. So for instance, the very first unit is advanced problem solving, and it focuses on the way humans and computers can solve problems. And I'm not going to go through every unit, but it goes through students are building websites, students are actually building an app in which they can solve a social or community issue, all the way to physical computing, where they learn about the parts of the computer, and parts of technology and how it works and how it all moves together. And also in Unit 5 is Data and Society, where it talks about using data and problem solving and how computers can help solve, and big data can solve community and social issues.
And through all of this, as we said, with the kindergarten grade level, there are concepts around digital safety, digital citizenship, digital footprint, and just computing ethics built throughout the curriculum. We did put this out for community engagement and feedback from teachers, and we did get some very positive feedback. One of the most important things that we heard is that computer science is extremely important for all of our stakeholders. So not only do our teachers believe it's important to have our students engaged in computer science, but our parents believe that as well. And then our teachers really were excited to have a very clearly defined curriculum rather than having to make up their own activities. This gives them some really good activities that are grounded in research and engaging and exciting for kids.
And also part of those feedback sessions, we hosted a session with local industry and those in the tech space that really talk about tech skills and those sorts of things that they're looking for in young people.
And then we also have had a focus on professional development. We actually started to implement this curriculum last school year. We did it as a pilot in 20 of our schools. And we have focused our PD days, our systemic PD days, with those teachers on this curriculum. And so we've been working with our industry partners, especially Code in the schools. They've come in and done a lot of training, and they've also opened up their space for our teachers to go there. We want to make sure that this is ongoing, and we will continue to have these professional development activities throughout the implementation. And then as that curriculum is updated and changed, we'll make sure that we are making our teachers aware of those updates and changes. And that's it for computer science, but you had a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. It may be because I'm so untechnical, so this may be a very silly question, but it occurs to me, just knowing that many of our students come from poverty, disadvantage, don't have books at home, all of that. But even more so, I would think, no computers at home, and I'm just wondering if that has been a problem yet, or if I don't know. I just know if you thought about that.
I think it's a great question, and I think that's one that a lot of people ask. But if we think about our kids, we see so many of them with phones. So they do have the technology. They may not have it in a way that we traditionally think about technology, but then we also want to make sure that they understand that they are going to encounter technology in just about every aspect of their life. So when they go to, get water out of their refrigerator, if they have that kind of water dispenser, that uses a computer chip, and when that chip goes, the whole refrigerator goes, but unless they have someone who can really fix that. And so even in careers where my husband is a landscaper, and even in that particular career, they're using GIS mapping in order to know how many trees to plant along the highway. So that all of those different careers and different things in our lives are so inundated with technology that this kind of curriculum prepares them to understand that and interact with it in a way that they understand that the computer is a dumb box and they're the ones that make it work appropriately.
Good point. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
To align with Dr. Berkeley's point, do our schools have the resources to implement this type of curriculum? Do they have the technology and the resources to implement the curriculum? And what does it look like? I'm curious to know what that looks like, because I know that there are schools without adequate resources. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. On the K-8 space, it is kind of a mixed bag from school to school because of the fair student funding and the way that schools decide to purchase technology. The nice thing about this curriculum is that you don't actually have to have computers in order to teach it. There are so many unplugged activities that teach the problem solving and algorithm concepts that you can teach that with paper pencil types of activities. And so you can really teach computational thinking without computers. You can't take it to that next level where you're actually doing the coding, or in some schools like Fort Worthington where they have gear and drones, you have kids that are actually using the code that they've learned to program a drone to do things like flips in the air. So we do have a wide variety of what equipment schools have. But the thing about this curriculum is it doesn't really matter. You can implement this and have kids really understand computational thinking with or without the technology. We would, of course, prefer them to have the technology, but we know that there are times when they're going to have to do it without.
And the great part about the curriculum is it's device agnostic, right? So it could be a Mac, it could be an IBM, it could be an iPad, it could be a Chromebook, right? Which is kind of on the cheaper end of the devices. So it doesn't matter what sort of platform you want to use.
Having it in the classroom.
Right, so it's not requiring a certain type of device for this sort of curriculum. You can use any sort of device. It could be a tablet, desktop, laptop, doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is, excuse me, sorry. So what I'm saying is that all of this activity technology would have to occur in the classroom, because once they leave the classroom, according to what Commissioner Berkeley was saying, and I think I'm piggybacking on Commissioner McFadden, even we can think of all these wonderful things that should happen. Most of it happened in the classroom, but once they leave the classroom, there are many students who do not have any of that technology at home and probably won't have it. So you just explain how we can make sure that they get all the information technology without having the resources.
Correct.
Because we would love for this to happen, but in the real world, once they walk out the classroom, there are many students who will not have the technology and have no other way of getting it, except their phones. Some won't even have.
If they have it.
We have to understand that it sounds great to say, because we see everybody with a cell phone and all these wonderful things. There are so many people out there who do not have that. So what you just said made me feel better when you said we can learn some of this technology right in the classroom, and then they can, when they leave the classroom in school, they can do their work at home without the technology. Some do not have a phone and will not have a telephone.
Right.
We're just hoping that they have a meal to eat when they get home. So we have to think about those, and you did.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now science. Science.
So we have been working on a transition to new science curriculum since 2013, when the Next Generation Science Standards came out, following the Common Core state standards for ELA and math. What we have right now is we have a new science curriculum, which we rolled out starting in 2017, 2018 with SABES. We developed that over a period of 5 years with Johns Hopkins with funding from National Science Foundation grant. We have adopted iQuest, which is a middle school science program. We started rolling that out to 6th grade in 2017, 2018. We rolled out 7th grade this year, and we intend to roll out 8th grade next year. We also have been writing our own high school science curriculum, which we released in 2017, 2018. We've been further refining it this year. This process has actually been instrumental in providing feedback from our teachers and various stakeholders on how we could improve it further. So if we look at our elementary science curriculum, it starts from kindergarten and goes all the way through 5th grade. The Next Generation Science Standards call for students to learn by doing. They're supposed to act as scientists and act as engineers while they're learning these core science ideas. They're not supposed to be sitting down and memorizing stuff. They're supposed to figuring out for themselves. So a typical unit for science in elementary school starts with a storybook. So like there's a 3rd grade unit, Sheep in the Jeep. I don't know if you know that storybook, that's Sheep in a Jeep, beep, beep. And it's students learn about sheep taking a Jeep down a hill. They have a big crash. They learn about friction. And so they do a series of investigations where they explore concepts of friction. They roll things down hills. They slide things down hills. They collect data. They figure out for themselves how friction works. And then every unit concludes with an engineering design challenge. Like for the Hermetropolis unit in 2nd grade, students use hermit crabs to learn about concepts about what do organisms need to survive, and they design the ideal hermit crab habitat based on the needs of hermit crabs, and that's their engineering design challenge for that unit. In middle school, we have iQuest. It also has students working as scientists and engineers. iQuest is a spiraled curriculum. So we used to have earth science in 6th grade, life science in 7th grade, and physical science in 8th grade. Now with iQuest, students have a unit of earth science, a unit of physical science, a unit of chemistry, and a unit of life science every year. So they see the same things over and over again, and it builds gradually over the years. One of the really nice design features of the iQuest curriculum is it purposely develops those practices of scientists and engineers. So students do things like make claims, and they do experiments to gather evidence. So they're doing an investigation, and they're revising their claims. So throughout the course of a unit, they're taking the model that they started with, how they think the world works. They're trying to explain a phenomenon. And then they do a investigation, and it challenges what they thought, how the world works. And so then they say, okay, well, based on my evidence, I'm going to change my model of how the world works. And they do another investigation, and that pattern continues until they end up with a fundamentally sound understanding Is that better? You're good. All right, so we'll move on to high school. For high school, we've been writing our own curriculum. We also rolled that out in 2017, 2018 with statewide adoption of the implementation of the Next Generation Science Standards. One thing that is different about the Next Generation Science Standards is it includes the engineering. We have engineering design challenges. It also includes earth and space science. So we have taken earth and space science according to Model K from the Next Generation, Appendix K, the Modified Science Domains model from the Next Generation Science Standards, and integrated earth science in with biology, chemistry, and physics. We also started with engineering design challenges back in 2015, 2016 to get our teachers who had been teaching just science and no engineering previously used to the idea of having students design solutions to the problems and the phenomena that they're studying in science. So we took the curriculum.
Can I stop you with one question? What is STOICHIO?
Stoichiometry?
Yes.
Wait a minute, where you, I can't see it.
That word.
Oh, stoichiometry.
Do you-
I teach that, yeah.
So
I'm sorry to be so
Commissioner
ignorant.
Bondema is probably better at explaining this than I am. Would you like me to take a stab at it, or do you want to do it, Commissioner Bondema?
No, go ahead.
All right. So in stoichiometry, I'll give you an example of the engineering design challenge that we have in chemistry. It's called the CO2 design challenge. They're supposed to figure out how to come up with an environmentally friendly solution for how to produce carbon dioxide for soft drinks. And so what they have to do is they have to take various chemicals like baking soda and citric acid and mix them together in the ideal ratio to produce baking soda cost effectively. Stoichiometry is the process of figuring out how those chemicals, the ratios that those chemicals need to react at optimally. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's,
Thank you, thank you.
I was going to ask you, in the whole process, this is really interesting, I like it. Do you connect with the math instructor and have a program going on where you connect with your math, your biology? Because you can incorporate all of this into the math, so I didn't see math down here. Do you do that?
So we always encourage our science teachers to collaborate with the math teachers. At the district level, we've done an analysis of which math standards correlate to the various science standards, and the Next Generation Science Standards actually did that analysis for us, and we double-checked on it. so we can understand and not expect students to do things that they're not ready to do yet.
Okay.
So like physical science in middle school is a big one, right?
Okay.
And we have to make sure that we don't expect students to do linear graphs to try to understand a data set before they've had that in eighth
Oh,
grade.
okay. I was just a little bit
But-
ahead of.
That's an area we'd love to do more of.
And another thing that I think is interesting, I'm gonna make this quicker, we don't have that much time. Do you take the students out to wetlands and do experiments, just collecting samples, and much of what you're doing here, all of that can be incorporated to different projects and address some of the topics that you have? Do you
I'm-
ever do that?
I'm so glad you asked that question because that's something that we've been working on.
Oh,
Um,
why am I asking questions you're already working?
This gives me an opportunity to showcase something cool that we're doing. So we call them curriculum embedded STEM experiences. And we've been actually working with Visit Baltimore. And if you go to baltimore.org/city schools, you can see these curriculum embedded STEM experiences where schools can go ahead and sign up for them. And they've been raising funds for transportation. So schools that can't afford to go there can afford to go. We have a 5th grade Save the Bay unit, which is at schools. They do an analysis of the watershed right around them, and they can take action like going around and cleaning up trash or labeling storm drains that they're going to Chesapeake Bay. In middle school, we have a experience where students go to the National Aquarium, and in their classes, they study what organisms need to survive, and they focus on organisms that could be living in the Chesapeake Bay, and then they start measuring the water quality right next to the aquarium, and they make predictions about what organisms could actually live there. There's actually students from Morgan that have helped lead those groups that are measuring the water quality and helping students eliminate what could and couldn't live there. And then they pull up bio cages and see what's actually living in the bay. High school, we have something similar in 9th grade, life sciences, where they go to watershed near them. So like if you're near the Jones Falls, you go to the Jones Falls. If you're not, there's an opportunity to go to Great Kids Farm and use the stream there. And students are measuring the water quality at a higher level than they do in middle school, and they're coming up with action projects of how they could make the environment around them better. So if we move on to teacher feedback, we surveyed all of our science teachers. We also had feedback sessions during professional development, and we heard pretty much across the board that all of our teachers like hands-on experiments, and they like it. The easier a curriculum is to follow, the better, and they've appreciated the new curriculum we've brought in because it's easier for them to implement. The other things that teachers really like is they like having the science materials. So particularly in middle school, where the district purchased the materials and has been rolling it out a year at a time, middle school teachers are really happy about that. We also brought it to the community and to principals, and parents had the opportunity to try some of the experiments, and they were very happy to get to make their own claims, look at the evidence, and explain their reasoning as well. As far as professional development goes, we have implemented conference-style professional development for science. We had teachers choose from 28 different workshops just recently, January 25, and they get to propose workshops that they need as well and lead them. That has been really helpful. We even rolled out an app for them to sign up for different workshops and implement surveys, etc. And that brings us to comments and questions.
I just want to make a recommendation, Madam Chair. I just want to make a recommendation to add to it, because I see you using Kevin Peters over at Morgan Center for Excellence in Math and Science, so that's a good thing. But what I want you to know, that University of Maryland and Baltimore City Community College downtown at Biopark have a serious center down there, and they do work with kids. Jane Schaub, Executive Vice President of Biopark, and Dr. Kathleen Kennedy at Biopark, and she's a geneticist and also microbiology, and they do excellent work at the elementary school level, and would be very, very happy to bring your students and work out a program. And some of the programs doesn't necessarily have to require finance. All it requires really is a bus to get down there, and I would be happy to help you with that. But it's some serious work going on down there, and I hate to see other districts using that when you can take advantage of it as well. 801 West Baltimore Street, and they have that's a big operation down there, and they're happy to work with our kids in Baltimore City. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation again today. It was all really nice. The next generation science standards, I happen to like them. I'm learning that, those set of standards, because I have to work with those in my school. And it's great to see the teachers and students really focus on that engineering piece, that innovation piece, because it is embedded throughout all of those standards. So it's great. Two things with the feedback, the teacher feedback. And this is a district written curriculum, correct?
For high school,
For high school, great. Are teachers included in the writing process of the curriculum, but beyond the feedback offering?
yes, so we have groups of teachers that have worked on developing the various units, and then after we complete curriculum, we send it out to our study committees. We have a study committee for biology, chemistry, and physics that provide feedback on that. When we make revisions to scope and sequence, and when we make revisions to assessments, we always send it out to them, and we get some very valuable feedback from them.
That's great to know. And then also, going back to, in the beginning of the presentation, you all were mentioning the inconsistency of the delivery of the curriculum. Could it be the resources? I'm going back to that. With this science curriculum, do all of our schools have adequate resources to implement this curriculum? And do we know that? And if we know it, how are we supporting them in making sure that they have the adequate resources to actually implement the curriculum?
So the amount of resources depends on the school right now. It's obviously best in middle school, where we made the district level purchase for 6th grade and 7th grade, and we're planning to do for 8th grade. Right now, if we look at all our traditional schools in elementary, we have about 57% of the materials that we need. So we're working on it. We've written a whole bunch of grants. A lot of that has come through grant funding that we've done. We've also used district funds whenever we're able to get them. And we're hoping to be able to use more in the future.
Question. Thank you. Thank you very much. This was fascinating. Makes me ready to go back to school.
Please take advantage of me.
Take
I'm
advantage
serious.
of her.
I would love to do that.
I'm serious. So I look to hear from you.
And we're going to go on
Okay.
to summer learning, because it's also exciting. We need to be doing it year-round. So that's why we're now going to talk about summer learning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you all. Thank you both, though.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura O'Hanian. I'm Director of Differentiated Learning.
I'm Chris Wan. I'm the Director of Research.
Rhonda Welsh, Coordinator of Extended Learning.
We're here today to discuss the 2018 Summer Learning Evaluation and introduce the 2019 Proposed Summer Learning Plan. Just to give you a quick overview of the presentation, we will have a general discussion of summer. We'll then go into programmatic detail slides where we do the 2018 program, a review of the evaluation, and the 2019 proposed plan associated with that program.
So Laura,
Well-
are you asking us to hold our questions until?
I haven't even gotten to that talking point yet. We'll then talk about the proposed new programs that we're really excited about, and we'll do a couple budget slides. We also have quite a few appendix slides that we welcome people to look at that include CT programs and ESY programs and additional data slides that provide additional context and include pre and post data that you might not see in our evaluation. But actually, before we begin, we would like to show a very quick video of our elementary summer learning opportunities.
Summer by practicing math and literacy through art-based lessons. Young Audience's Summer Arts and Learning Academy believes all students can develop their minds, creativity, imagination, critical thinking, and so much more. And guess what? The program is free, full day, and lasts for 5 weeks. How amazing is that?
Art makes me learn faster because of fun, because I don't like boring ways. And when we in this class, we turn fun ways to make you still learn and educate you.
I get on them and they blow fire. I was on the beach. I was surfing, then a big wave hit me. It sounded like the whistling wind.
I learned about beatboxing, like how you have to make your mouth to create the sounds, and it was pretty fun.
You get to learn from the best teachers and artists around. They work together to plan exciting lessons for the students to help them understand different art forms. Walk into a classroom and you might see beatboxing to learn fractions, creating artworks to break down a story, and even give music performances.
To engage the kids' imagination and then had them do a little bit of a guided writing that for them was writing the story about what they were imagining based on what they were hearing.
And come up with creative ways that will help the kids understand math and literacy in a way maybe if they see it physically, they can remember a lot of things that they're doing.
To be knowledgeable as a teacher, you have to understand that you need something that's going to engage the students for them to even go ahead and learn what you're presenting.
Artists bring the art form, and our city school teachers bring the expert in teaching and in the content area. You pull that together, and we create truly a world-class education for our kids.
You will not find these students experiencing the summer slide, but launching into the next school year full of confidence, determination, and feeling great about their math and reading skills.
I learned how to do math better. I learned how to work with people better, and I learned how to do poetry.
It's helping me learn for things that I'm going to do that I might have to do in the next grade.
The Springboard Collaborative is another innovative summer-based program that brings together parents and teachers to collaborate as they help children develop new reading habits, set specific goals, and inspire a love for reading. Small group instruction, workshops to empower parents to teach reading at home, and incentives to award learning tools to families as improvements are made along the way for our young readers. From Young Audience's Summer Arts and Learning Academy to the Springboard Collaborative, Baltimore City Public Schools is focused on limiting summer learning loss, increasing graduation rates, providing fun and enriching learning experiences and math and literacy through the arts, and empowering families to not just be on track, but to get ahead.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. So what we're going to do, because this is quite an extensive PowerPoint and we don't have quite as much time as we were hoping, we will just highlight very quick components of each of the slides because it's a public document, and we'll also be presenting the 2019 summer plan to the full board, so we have even more time, and so this will be presented again.
Thank you.
No problem. As noted here, we are aligned to the blueprint. I think it's important to note that as you consider whole child supports, we're looking at really the enriching middle grades opportunities, and I'll talk more about that in just at the end of the presentation. Our goals for summer learning include limiting summer learning loss, but they also include providing a safe space for our kids, enriching opportunities, and directly impacting promotion and graduation. Summer learning programs provide additional opportunities for enrichment and intervention with the goal of limiting summer learning loss, which is aligned to quite a bit of research, which actually has been grounded, including the Coleman Report here in Baltimore, which suggests that socioeconomic performance or achievement gaps mainly form in the summer. when school is not in session. We are part of a larger summer providers network, and here you'll see that we're a big component of it, but we're not the only summer provider. And I think it's really important also to note that just this past summer, we served over 380,000 meals at 116 sites. So what you see today is some of the summer programs, but you know there's a lot going on in our schools, and that kids are there and having fun and learning. So our programs, as you can see here, are located all throughout the city with the goal of supporting as many different neighborhoods as possible. It's important to remember that there's also school-based programs that serve some of our smaller neighborhoods, so we try to pick areas that are centrally located that kids can get to. This last summer, we provided 70,000 bus tickets for students to get to all of our programs. So I'll give it.
All right, thanks, Laura. So before we jump into sort of a program-by-program review of our summer opportunities, I want to just slow down for a second to go over the methodology we use to evaluate our programs. So a lot of the way we look at our summer programs is informed by prior research. And really one study that's been pivotal there was some work done by the RAND Corporation and funded by the Wallace Foundation in 2013 and 14 that really, in my opinion, set the bar for how to evaluate summer programs. So we use a mixed methodology. We evaluate both quantitative data for our summer programs and also qualitative data. On the quantitative side, we will be looking at attendance for each program, and then depending on the focus of the program, a set of other academic outcomes such as assessment scores, promotion rates, and AP course enrollment. On the qualitative side, our team went out to different summer sites and conducted focus groups with a methodology that's aligned to the school effectiveness review team's visits that they do during the school year. So we will be showing some snapshots of qualitative comments that we got from our focus groups, and I just want to take a second to remind everyone that these are as it was reported to us, so may not reflect, the complete truth of a situation, but the perception of our staff and students when we interviewed them. An overview of our summer results. We have a lot of programs, but here are some of the highlights. Our Young Audiences Elementary School program doubled their enrollment and held their attendance pretty constant despite that large scaling up of their program. Our middle school promotion program increased their promotion rate. However, there was a decrease in the attendance rate by about 20% in that program when compared to prior years. Our middle school STEM participants continue to be really strong performers. They had an already high attendance rate that they increased by about 7%, and they increased an average of 6.6 percentile ranks on their iReady scores. Our high school credit recovery program increased slightly in size, 142 more participants. Their attendance rate went up, but the amount of credits that were earned decreased slightly by about 5%.
Okay, the first program we want to talk about and highlight is our Summer Arts and Learning Academy. This program is an enrichment program with a literacy and math piece. It uses a co-teaching model where we have a teacher and a teaching artist in the room supporting each other at all times with the students. As you can see, the number of students the number of sites changed from like 4 to 8 sites for this program, and we doubled in size. The other thing I want you to note is that we partnered with ESY and provided seats for about 150 ESY students in this program as well at 3 of our 8 sites.
So we'll start with attendance for our Young Audience program, and we have a comparison from last year to this summer. So the attendance rate is pretty constant from last year to this year at about 75%. And one thing that I do want to call out there, as Rhonda mentioned, is that this program dramatically increased in size, basically doubled from just over 1,000 students to just over 2,000 students. Another attendance quantitative measure we look at is the percent of students who attend 20 or more days. And that is guided by the RAND Corporation's research that I mentioned that says to really get a lasting effect out of attending summer school, a student needs to be present for at least 20 days. So it's sort of setting a dosage for what a summer school should offer. And in both cases, last year and this year, young audiences were right around 55, 56%. When you compare this to other summer programs in large urban school districts, attendance rates usually run from about 60 to 80%. So young audiences is doing quite well in this regard. And about half of all students are usually observed to attend 20 or more days. So they did a little bit above average on that measure. Our next slides are going to look at some of the assessment data. We're going to start here with reading. We use our DIBELS and iReady tests to measure reading change over the summer. And we start by looking at where students were at the end of the school year, and then look again at them when they begin the next school year to measure the impact of summer. So what we're looking at here is the young audience program in blue and a comparison group of Title I students who didn't attend a summer program in red. And the way to interpret this graph is that this is showing our summer learning loss. So you'll notice that there are arrows that are pointing down. So students are not, they're meeting benchmark at a lower rate they were at the end of the year when they begin the next year. What we're looking for here in our summer programs is to see that the size of the arrow is smaller, or hopefully even pointing in a positive or upward direction. So when we look at both DIBELS scores in K-2 and in iReady, in grades 3 to 5, we saw that young audiences very slightly outperformed the district comparison group. However, the differences were not statistically significant. And again, we have the results displayed for iReady in math, grades K through 2, and 3 through 5 that show the same pattern, essentially, that the reading results showed as well. We did want to take, in addition to the video, a second to just mention that the real focus of our young audience program is on providing enrichment activities to our students. So they have artists in the classroom. Kids are learning about visual arts, dance, music, all sorts of activities that they may not have access to at home or in their regular schools. And that just goes to say that not everything can be reflected by a test result or a quantitative data point. I don't think we have a standardized assessment that looks at ukulele proficiency, but if we do get one, I'm sure that little guy will do very well on it. But we did just want to point that out. It's not all just about the test scores. Feedback from the focus groups from the Young Audience Program. Folks really enjoyed teachers having the artist-teacher combination in the classroom, and they also felt that the PD was very strong for that program. Students reported that they were feeling challenged academically and, as always, would like to see more field trips offered.
We are continuing our partnership with young audiences for 2019 summer. The one thing I want to note as far as changes go, last year we had pre-K at 4 sites. This year we intend to have pre-K at all 8 sites, at least 1 pre-K classroom, and depending on enrollment, we could potentially add 2 classrooms to those sites. For 2018, the Springboard Collaborative, we want to note here that Springboard is a literacy intervention program. It isn't simply an enrichment program. So the goal of this program was to provide an intervention to students who were below grade level, and also to try to engage families in that work of keeping students active in reading and so on.
So taking a look at the Springboard program's attendance, the attendance rate for this program is lower than we observed with young audiences, 61.5%, and we just have 1 year of data for this. So that's towards the lower end of what we would expect. However, as Rhonda mentioned, the focus of the program is that it's not enrichment based, it's with literacy intervention. So that's some context there. When we look at the percentage of students attending 20 or more days, that number is 28.4, which is low considering other programs. So we need to work on improving that and making sure kids are coming for the full length of the program so they get that full dose of the intervention and we see success going on to the next school year. Again, we have our graphs of summer learning loss. So here you will note in K to 2, the Springboard group, much smaller levels of learning loss than was observed in their Title I comparison group in red. And then slightly smaller results on the right for grades 3 to 5 in reading. We didn't look at math results given the literacy focus, so you're just seeing the reading ones presented for Springboard here.
So we are definitely going to move forward with that partnership with Springboard for next year. Note that summer 2018, we were at 3 sites. This summer, we are moving into 10 sites and going to reach like 1,200 students approximately. For 2018, our middle grades promotion program, as in previous years, we were partnered with Bell. We served approximately 465 students at 2 sites.
So for our middle school promotion program, attendance rates, as I mentioned in the summary, took about a 20-point drop from previous year. Promotion rates were increased slightly, up by about 6.5%. Our focus groups, teachers reported that they would like to see established curricula for all subjects, including science and social studies, and students felt that they were actually learning, but had concerns about transportation and the duration of the program.
For summer 2019, what I want to point out here is that the operator is going to be determined. We are in an RFP process at this time to try to find out what other options we have available to us. So the potential for a new partner or the district operating it is an option. The 2018 Engineers of the Future program, it is an accelerator math program with the goal of increasing students' access to Algebra 1 in middle school. There were 175 students who participated. I want to note that rising 8th graders have the potential to be in a virtual 8th grade course, Algebra 1 course in the fall, and we did have students who did participate in that during this school year.
So for our young engineers, attendance rates were high, 80% in the prior year and now up to 87% in this past summer. We also here on our iReady math results saw that they actually grew during the summer. So we see that 6.66%, that was an increase in their iReady percentile versus a comparison group which went down 1.6%. So they actually, a very talented group of students and really showed some gains during the summer in this program. For our focus groups, teachers reported that they loved the STEM model and that they almost wish it could be extended into the regular school year. They really liked the support that they had there. The students also did not have really much negative feedback. They felt that they were very challenged by the program and that it prepared them for school next year.
We intend to continue with the Engineers of the Future program, and the goal is to expand seats to approximately 270 students. For 2018, our high school summer school program, this is a program where students can not only recover credits, but can also take courses for original credit. We had almost 1,900 students at 3 sites. I want to note that we had a late start site to try to take into consideration students who would like to participate in youth works or work in the morning, and they could take a course in the afternoon to recover credit or try to get ahead.
For a high school credit recovery program,
I just have one
Oh, sure.
comment. I was holding out all the way through this because I was wondering how, and this is quick, I was wondering what incentive did you give, and you kind of gave it a little bit right now, to encourage the high school students to come in, because that is the most difficult group to keep during the summer because they have jobs. So I just wanted to get that out. I don't have to answer it at the end. So what incentive do you give? It's just that maybe they failed a class or course, and they need to make up the course. Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, they can walk away with a credit, so I think that's the incentive. They can recover a credit in 5 weeks, rather than if they wait till the following school year, then they would have to take it for the entire school year. So it's a fast-track way of getting those credits.
And just really quickly, at some of our other high school sites, so for example, at the AP Academy, which we'll talk about in a second, we partnered with YouthWorks. So even though they didn't get a credit, they had an opportunity to participate in YouthWorks as part of the program. And in our EL summer program, there was a mix. So if they were in a non-credit bearing support program, they were partnering with the YouthWorks if they were eligible.
I'm also glad to hear that you're also running the courses in the evening. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we saw pretty high attendance rates for our high school credit recovery program, 76 in the previous year, up to 80 this year. However, we did see a modest decline in the percent of credits earned from last year to this year. For our focus groups, teachers reported that they enjoyed the PD. They thought it was well organized and structures. Students really appreciated that there were multiple teachers in the classroom. Some of our teacher training programs take place in this summer program.
We are going to continue with the high school program. The only change this year is we're using one of our 21st century buildings. We'll be at Forest Park. It'll be our late start site this year. The high school English learners summer program, like the high school program, students can recover credits or take a course for original credit. This is specifically catered to students who are ELs who are overaged and undercredited. The other thing I want to note here is that we were able to partner this last summer with Soccer with Borders and the Refugee Youth Project. So they brought some students into it too. So some of the students who participated in it, again, it was some of the partnership with YouthWorks, so students could work and recover a credit or participate in an enrichment piece with the Refugee Youth Project or the Soccer Without Borders and have some enrichment and some fun over the summer as well.
So again, our attendance rates for our EL high school credit recovery program are pretty similar to what they were last year, about 65%. That's slightly lower than our more general high school credit recovery program, which was in the 70s, approaching 80. The percent of credits also down a bit from the previous year and slightly lower than when compared to our other high school credit recovery program. Some of the focus groups, teachers reported that communication was very strong. Students also really enjoyed the program. There were concerns about transportation.
We're going to continue with this program. The only thing that we're going to do with this one is it won't be, the 5 weeks of this program coincides with the YouthWorks so that more kids have the opportunity to be enrolled in YouthWorks, since YouthWorks only has one session this year. Previous years, they've had 2 sessions, so we're adjusting some of our program dates to align with YouthWorks. The 2018 AP program, again, this focuses on preparing students for the rigors of AP courses in the fall. It is partnered with YouthWorks, and we had 68 students attend at Digital Harbor High School.
Our attendance rates for our AP students are very high, up to 88% attendance rate this year. It's a very highly motivated group of students taking AP classes. We did see a slight increase in the number of kids who didn't end up enrolling. That's that 0 bar in an AP course in the following year. So that went up from 24 to about 31%. However, on the other end, we did see a number of students actually enrolling in 3 or more classes, which we hadn't seen in previous years. So a little bit of a change there. Our focus groups, both teachers and students really reported that they liked the small class size and that the attention they were able to give and receive as part of the curriculum. There were some concerns about using the YouthWorks process to apply, and that was somewhat of a hassle for some students. So that came up in our focus groups as well.
The thing I want to note about this year's AP program is that the changes are more aligned to the district's overall AP programming plan and will include a pre-AP capstone experience. Also, because over the next couple years, all schools will be required to have AP courses. They're going to be focusing more on AP Lang and Lit and government, which are some of the more popular courses that schools will be offering in the fall.
Okay. So this summer, we're also looking at some potential programs. These are designed to support literacy, the continuum of learner, and provide enriching opportunities for our middle grades students, predominantly for middle grade students. There's one K2 program. And these include the ALE dance program, which would be a part.
So happy to see that on this list.
I love it too. Yeah, it's really. So they've provided opportunities for some of our Baltimore City, and we're still exploring the possibility of funding. We still have to get approval through either, some of these are for LEAP grant and some of them are Title I, so I just want to be clear that these are potential partnerships. But in past, they've served some Baltimore City kids, but they've agreed if we can partner with them, it would be only exclusively Baltimore City students. And we'd have, what is it, over 65 seats?
Yeah, there would be like 72 seats, I think they said.
And it's an amazing program. It's very strong at building leadership. It's going to incorporate a literacy component that the other Alvin Ailey camps do not currently offer. And it's really just a high-quality program, which you obviously know. I'm sorry. Go.
Real quick, I'm hoping that you will be able to include students from other schools other than School of the Arts.
Oh, yeah, no, this is designed for students, and it's just a middle grades program, so it's designed for students from all over.
Oh, for middle
And it would be
grades.
Title I eligible
Okay, good,
students.
good.
Booker T is screaming out to me as a Title I school with a program that focuses on the arts. But also, I don't know what our certified dance teacher programming or schools that have dance programs. I don't even know what it looks like right now.
But
I think
we can't get into that now. We're running late.
I'm equally excited about this program, I just want you to know. Coding in the schools, we're looking at potentially a band program, a specialized middle school English learner program that focuses on students with interrupted schooling again, but really focuses on building background knowledge around some of the cultural pieces and American history that they might not have experienced because they were not in the country. Middle grades debate program, we're looking at a Freedom Schools program through POP. We're looking at Algebra Access for All, which would be like the Engineers of the Future program. An Emerging Scholars program, which would be a partnership through CTY. And an Amazon Future Engineering Coding with Kids program. So this is.
TY.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Center for Talented Youth with Hopkins, and so that would be a specialized program that would allow our students to engage in that rigorous curriculum at an earlier age and be prepared. So again, these are all opportunities. We're waiting to hear about some of our grants to see if we can have them, but these are some of the things we're exploring. This is really important for us as a CAO organization to really expand what we've done previously in our middle grades to provide opportunities for our students to have experiences they may not have had previously or don't have time for.
Basically, you're looking at our budget for last summer. Breaks it down by general funds and grant funds. And then if you go to the next slide, this is our potential budget for this year, showing the various options. And you'll look and you'll see our goal is to increase that Title I side with some of our new programs.
That was it.
Excellent report. Sorry we don't have more time, but thank you very much. Good work. We had this to continue to study. Thank you. And next up is procurement. Very good. You're teasing me.
gotta stay
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Vogel from Procurement. There are 2 items on the agenda for tonight. The first is a contract with Marriott Foundation for People with Disabilities. Contract amount is $120,000 per year. The contract provides students with IEPs the opportunity to develop work skills and secure paid employment.
So this is going to be, I have a couple of questions, but it's coming to us because it is at, Dr. Brooks, it's coming to us because it is at, it's over 50,000, but it is still, the cost is coming through third-party billing, correct?
I thought it was 25,000. It's 50,000? I don't know.
So good evening, Dr. Deborah Brooks, Executive Director of Special Education.
Good evening, Donna Bushrod, Director of Inclusion, Office of Special Education.
So the answer is yes.
1,000 it had to come to us, over 25. It's 50,000?
Is it 25? I don't know.
No,
No,
but if
to
it's-
come to us, is it 25 or is
It's
it
over
50?
25.
Yes.
Is that
25?
correct? Yes. Dr. Brooks?
It is 25.
I'm sorry. The other question with that procurement item, how were the high schools selected for it? I see Douglas, Carver, Connections, Excel, Patterson. How were they chosen? How were they chosen?
Schools were chosen, the schools were chosen because of geographical reasons and also the communities in which they serve, because the Marriott Bridges to Work partners will comb the communities, look at the local businesses in there, and you can see within those communities, there are several industries there that our students have goals to pursue once they leave school, and they partner with those job developers. They look at the students' IEP plans to see what interests the students have, so those businesses represent the collection of the students' post-secondary outcomes.
If there is, in the event that this type of service there's a need for it to be in other areas, would we then look at this again? Would this increase? Will we come back to look at a different procurement item?
So what we've done is looked at trend data over the years,
Okay.
and so we've been successful with these schools. When we've had other schools, we haven't had as many students participate, and they haven't participated over a great span of time. But with these schools, we've seen students participate and then go on to continue in that career field.
Sure.
So this is why we've maintained with these 9 schools.
Thank you.
And then, have we addressed the skilled nursing services?
Thank you.
The next agenda item is requesting board's approval to add 3 vendors to the current board-approved skilled nursing services contract with no additional funding. Contract period is July 1 of 2018 through June 30th of 2023.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a few questions and comments. First, dealing with technology, I was one of 2 that attended the community meeting of computer science technology in the NGSS presentation. And I had concerns then, and I see they weren't addressed or said, so I'm saying it again now. So one of my concerns is keyboarding. I didn't see anything dealing with typing, teaching students how to type.
And when I filled out my son's, or helped him fill out his application to acquire a job, they asked how many words a minute could he type. I didn't see anything on there about Microsoft Office on that application again, dealing with YouthWorks, or any other application. They asked, do you know how to use Word, Publisher, etc., Excel. I didn't see anything really about Google Docs, which is the current system that a lot of people use for typing and sending messages and things like that.
What did you say? I missed what.
Google Docs.
Thank you.
So my recommendation is that all three of these be included in computer science, that they should know how to do all of them. And it's still required, and it still acts when you fill out a job application.
Thank you.
Also, they need to know how to type papers and stuff when they go to college. And currently, I have to sit there and help my son with his papers that he have to type and his PowerPoint presentations. Next, with the GSS, from what I've heard, the district only provide a one-time pay for materials. So there are places where students have to dissect a couple of things. And if they don't have the money to buy that fish or frog or whatever it is every year, then their only option is to watch a video. That does not give the same experience. Also, I have visited a couple of schools. They don't have microscopes. Now, from my understanding, the district provided microscopes years ago. But again, with the budget being so tight and constantly being trimmed, they do not have the money to buy additional microscopes. So then, I also noticed with astronomy, what used to be taught in 6th grade, now it's taught in 11th grade. And who's going to pay for the students to take a trip to the aquarium every year to do these hands-on projects? Schools can barely pay for buses, let alone pay for a student to get into the aquarium. Who is paying? How are the teachers that will be teaching engineering currently qualified or certified to teach engineering? And if not, how would that impact that teacher's position, and how does that impact the students? I heard some things. Oh, big major. This is deal with ELA. There are high schools and middle schools that does not currently have their novels. And so students are required to purchase their own novel. There isn't even a class set or a class set reserved in the school's library for students.
Ms. Goodwin, what are you talking about, the Wit and Wisdom curriculum?
Yes, the Wit and Wisdom curriculum for middle school and for high school, whatever it is that the school uses to tell the students what novels they have to read. They don't have them. The students have to purchase their own novels. And so we have some parents actually purchasing novels for other students because their parents can't purchase them.
So Janice Lane can come to the table if she would like, but I do know that we can also provide this to the board, because I know we provide quarterly updates to Dr. Santelises around the materials, and I know that early on in the year, we did have some challenges with books, but we are pretty much caught up and moving forward. We are good with our textbooks, or not textbooks, our novels and different texts for classrooms, but Janice can jump in on that for more details.
Not at Western.
Sure. All schools that are related to Wit and Wisdom, all texts have been delivered, tracked, inventoried. There is also a process and protocol that if a school doesn't have the materials that they need to reach to the literacy office, alert them of that. We just had, I want to say 2 weeks ago, an inventory check where teachers could come in and pick up additional texts that were here in the district office. So I would invite, if there's teachers that you are aware of, Ms. Goodwin, if they want to reach out to myself or Ashley Cook around those texts missing. I think you're talking high school right now, so not Wit and Wisdom curriculum, but we can check on availability. But all texts are available for teachers.
Thank you.
I wanted to say I appreciate the summer school presentation, and if the parents enjoyed small classroom sizes for their AP courses, the they definitely want it during the school year, which currently our neighborhood schools do not have small classroom sizes for the most needy kids. However, they do have small classroom sizes for AP students. There are incentives for students to take AP where they actually get paid through a summer program to attend AP courses. I just heard something similar to that. However, students who have to take remedial courses are penalized if they fail a course. They have to pay for that course, and they don't get to work in youth works, so they don't get paid. So are parents getting reimbursed their money once the student pass? Where's the equity in that? I have concerns about algebra only being expanded to 207 students. How many students are currently taking Algebra 1? And how does that really fit into the blueprint and into the priorities that was on the, for the district priorities of expanding Algebra 1 AP courses to several schools? I'm not seeing how 207 students fit into that. With the science, I'm not sure if I understood that they explore after the content or before. I know previously you did an exploration to capture and engage students, and you talk through the vocabulary while you're doing the exploration. Then you went through the content, and then you did an experiment. I also didn't understand the breakdown to how that is laid out in a science room.
Okay,
So that's it, yes.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. How can I find the results to the survey that everyone who presented did, especially technology, computer science technology, and the regular science classes? They said that they performed a survey, which I know they did. I completed one. But I can never find the results. They present something, but I can't read the data for myself. How many people took the data, how many teachers, how many parents, how many community members, what were the top categories? Just nothing. I don't see any of that.
Chief Conley, do you have any idea where that would be?
Let me talk to my team about where we house that data, and if that's publicly released or not. I'm sure it is.
Okay, thank you. We'll have to get.
Yeah, and I would say, just like we've done in the past, if all those questions can go to the board office, and we'll work to answer them.
Yes, if you can turn in your questions.
Okay. And the last one, which grade levels will require teachers to be certified in computer science? Because I had mixed understanding when I attended a community meeting about what elementary teachers that teach computer science need to be certified. Will it be middle school? Would it only be a certain topic they need to be certified in, but they teach in a variety of things?
So if
I need clarity.
So if you give us your questions, we'll get them.
Okay.
We'll get the answers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else for public comment? No one else signed up. Okay. Oh, is that all right? Okay. Is it my call? Okay.
Hello, everybody. I kind of showed up late today, so I was unable to sign in. How is everyone doing today?
Could you give us your name, please?
Oh, Ebony McKeever, a part of PCAB, teacher currently at Mergenthaler. So, as a member of PCAB, one of the tasks, of course, is making sure that we constantly engage stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, staff members around the processes that are going around in Baltimore City. So I guess really what I want to talk to you all about in my 3 minutes is just really the engagement process. And I think the culture and climate right now around city schools is that, especially, I guess today I want to talk about staff members, is that they don't really feel engaged in the process. How I come to this conclusion is as soon as I'm able to, access the agenda for the teaching and learning committees, I usually send out like a Facebook message or something on Instagram or talk to staff members in the school or reach out to other community members and stakeholders and say, what is it that you want me to be able to relay to the board when I sit in the meeting? I get a lot of questions, I get a lot of comments, but a lot of the times I receive like, please don't say my name. because I don't want it to come across as, my job is in jeopardy or that I am talking negatively about the district. And so, like, even as I was listening to the presentations today, I know that for the Wit and Wisdom, there were 188 responses. My question is, out of how many teachers are the responses, do we know, are they being answered with fidelity in the sense that the answers that are being provided are a true reflection of what's going on? I will say that overall, my fear is that the curriculum and decisions being made within teaching and learning are being driven by a few for the majority. I'm trying to look through my notes and kind of process all of this. One of the other things that I was kind of thinking about in responding to you all today is I know that the different contents that presented, we had the computer science, we had the NGSS team, and even Wit and Wisdom and ELA come up, and they always talk about how they kind of vet their answers and responses from other teachers within the curriculum. But I also like to think, what happens if maybe the NGSS paired up with the social studies department? And then we started talking about building curriculum and place-based learning and expanding to make sure that the ELA Wit and Wisdom is also partnering, say, with something that we're teaching in social studies to sort of reinforce what the students are learning. I don't think that we do enough in terms of reaching out to other contents to make sure that our students are getting a holistic education. And then I also did have a question that I received from an educator in terms of physics, and she wanted to know that because physics wasn't already a required subject, that a lot of schools opted out of teaching physics, and now that it is a required course for high schools, is there going to be a professional development around making sure that teachers are even comfortable with teaching physics? Because she says it's been, 10, 15 years since she had to learn physics in college. And although theoretically she should be able to teach physics, she's finding that she's struggling in teaching physics along with kind of making sure that the students are doing well. Also, going back to the engagement, I just want to make sure that the messaging that the district is communicating towards teachers is in alignment with what the teacher or the leaders are going out and also communicating. I know that one of the comments that I received, especially with the Wit and Wisdom models now, is that the modules were told that they were supposed to be aligned quarterly, and they're receiving that information from the principals, but they're also being told that when they go to the Wit and Wisdom PDs, that they do not have to align quarterly. So there's some miscommunication in that. And I think that's about it right now.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I submit my questions as well? Got you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for, it was certainly an information-filled meeting, so thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, wait a minute. So we meet next, when do we meet next? Hold on. Oh, March 5th. We meet next March 5th, and you're asking me what the topics are going to be. Oh, kindergarten readiness assessment will be at our next meeting, and the pipeline update, teacher and school leaders.
Commissioner
And a
Berkeley.
written update on four-year high school graduation dropout rates. Thank you, sorry.
Before we adjourn, may I make a comment?
Sir, yes, sir.
This is National School Counseling Week. School counselors, the topic is school counselors providing lessons for life. It's celebrated this week to focus public attention on the unique contribution of school counselors within U.S. school systems. National School Counseling Week is sponsored by the Association of School Counselors, highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. National School Counseling Week is always celebrated the first full week in February. This is also Black Lives Matter at School's Week of Action. And as racism and xenophobia become more prevalent and overt in our schools and communities, it's important than ever, more important than ever, to listen to and elevate the voices, experiences, and history of our fellow citizens and communities under attack. The goal of Black Lives Matter at school is to spark an ongoing movement of critical reflection and honest conversation in school communities for people of all ages to engage with issues of racial justice. To find stories and resources and ideas highlighting Black Lives Matter at school from across the country, please visit neaedjustice.org. There's a pledge that I actually took. I know everyone's ready to go. There's a pledge that is on that same website that a lot of teachers have been encouraged to take, and the pledge reads, "As educators and allies, we will work to address the inequities that result from institutionally racist policies and practices in our schools and the communities in which our students live. We choose not to accept these conditions as they exist, but to accept the responsibility for changing them. We pledge to take actions that will address access and opportunities for all students by highlighting inequities and increasing awareness, organizing for change, and growing the movement." That pledge is on neaedjustice.org. I just wanted to make that comment before we end.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. And thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.